Good morning. It
Good
is,
morning, afternoon.
or yeah. And it's approaching afternoon for me too. I should get in that habit.
I
Friday,
guess the way to say it is good day.
good day. Yeah, that's a very
Covers
Canadian
everything.
thing. That's a very Canadian thing, actually. Good day, is kind of
Ah,
all the charming, funny Canadians say it that way. Bob and Doug McKenzie, they were. I don't know if you remember them. They had a movie. It was cute. Anyways, it's January 10th. Um, And we're back, and we were just talking about where you used to live, the Pacific Palisades, and like the fires going on there right now. It's
unbelievable.
unbelievable.
Unbelievable. The devastation is beyond belief. We lived there. I moved to California in 1977, and I moved to the Palisades, which was at the time a very sleepy little town. Um, Off Sunset and the Coast Highway. So the Pacific Palisades sits right between Santa Monica and Malibu on the coast, but it's up about 100 feet up a mountain.
Hmm.
So it's on the ridge of a mountain overlooking the ocean. And the town, I lived on the other side of town, on the Coast Highway side of town. Um, for the first couple of years. And then Marvin and I bought a house across the street from the Riviera Country Club. Some people who are golfers may know of the Riviera Country Club. So it was big houses. We were for the Palisades. We were on about an acre, and our home was a nice size home. It was 4,000 square feet. And our house was surrounded by huge pine trees, and we were up on a hill. So it was very beautiful. And in all the years we lived there, we were never evacuated. The fires would come and get Malibu or the Highlands, which was up on the hill, but it never came across Sunset Boulevard near us. And you asked why we decided to move.
I did.
Um, I had been saying for at least a couple of years that the policies in California were unsustainable and that our grandchildren were not getting a good education. So I kept saying, where are we going to move? And it had to be a reasonably warm climate and conservative. And our daughter-in-law was born in South Carolina in Hilton Head. So once they took a trip and realized the difference in gas prices between California and South Carolina, they came home and said, okay, let's move. So that was, I believe it was 2020. Uh, but it was, COVID hit. California was mandating a lot of things. Um, we have not been supporters of any kinds of mandates. And um, California got bad and prices were going up. So once our son said South Carolina is an option, we put our house up for sale. It sold within 3 weeks of putting it up for sale. And we managed to negotiate a 3 week extension on the close. So we basically had a month to find a house, get it together, and move.
Huh?
So we moved in the end of April 2021.
It is.
And in one weekend, and COVID was still active. The week I came to look at a house in South Carolina, a good friend of ours was hospitalized with COVID. And Marvin was on the phone with him, telling him what to do. And he got over it with Marvin's advice. Um, but I had one weekend to find a house. So I did. And then I went home and we packed everything and moved.
So
And it took about a year to renovate our new house.
yeah, which is beautiful. It's amazing. Um, but so you stated a bunch of really sensible reasons for wanting to leave, but did you also have a feeling like it was like
Oh,
is that
I was saying for several years, we need to leave.
get out of here? Yeah.
And California is my home.
Mhm.
Um, I really do miss it, or I miss what it was.
Mhm.
And the fact that the fires blew through, and I look at the movies, and the town is completely leveled. The bank is gone, Ralph's is gone, Gelson's is, the supermarkets are gone, the library's gone, the schools are gone, the Starbucks is gone. The whole town is nothing standing. And the homes, probably the cheapest condo in the Palisades was over $1 million. And across the street from us was Michael Keaton.
Mm.
Down the block from us was Jessica Capshaw.
Oh, wow.
Um, um, a couple of blocks away with Tom Hanks.
Mhm.
So we were surrounded by celebrities, and our home was one of the less expensive homes, I'd say, because we got in.
In the 70s, right?
We
So
got in 1979,
yeah.
and I negotiated a great deal. So, we got in for next to nothing compared to what we sold it for. But there was no water in the fire hydrants, and there was no water to put out the fire, and there was no capacity to bring the ocean water. And it's on the coast. And then the fire went north to Malibu. So all of the coast on Malibu is wiped out. There's no homes left standing. This is biblical. This is not, I mean, in the 46 years that I lived there, or 48 years that I lived there, uh, the fire never came near our home. It never crossed Sunset. Will Rogers' historic home is gone. Um, the Getty was burning as of last night. Uh, so I don't know. It's just, and the insurance companies pulled out of California last year. So nobody had insurance. The
Yeah.
magnitude of this is beyond comprehension. My
But
daughter sent me a picture this morning of a friend's home,
Mhm.
and it's just dirt, nothing left, not even a beam.
Mhm. Yeah, that's awful. Did you say that your street, the street that you're on, was for the most part not hit?
As far as I know.
Yeah. So good energy that you left behind there.
Well, they tore down the house, they tore down the trees,
Yeah, the
and
energy. in that space.
So it's sad.
Yeah. It's it's something people need to pay attention to because I think it's kind of happening everywhere. It's happening here in BC with, our provincial government has privatized everything. So they're just project managers and they're mismanaging the projects because they're overwhelmed. There's a company here called BC Hydro. It's what provides our power. And I know I have some friends that have been at their plants and they haven't been upgraded since the 70s and nobody's monitoring them. And this is how we get our power. So at some point, any disruption, and then it breaks the food chain. And, it's like the value of your home, what you paid for it in the 70s would have been so small compared to what you sold it for.
Right?
But what would it be worth now? There's no stores nearby. There's no schools nearby. So it's a view of devastation. So like,
Somebody said to me this morning, they don't know that the Palisades could ever get built up again because who would insure it?
Yeah.
I mean, it's incomprehensible. I mean, I don't know how people whose homes survived would even want to be there.
Yeah.
I know of one person whose home did survive, and they went to their home in La Jolla.
Yeah. Yeah. It gets you back to basics, right? Shelter, connection. It'll reset you real fast. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I told you I lived in Bermuda for 5 years, and that's all
Mhm.
banking and reinsurance companies. So insurance companies that insure insurance companies, because none of them can actually like deal with a devastation. So they insure each other, but if the whole house of cards falls, then there's nobody left, right? So it cuts back.
Right.
So yeah, it's funny, but not funny, but I've been like preparing our little house for a long time. We have power walls in our house, so we can go on power for 4 days, solar power, at a time when I could afford those things. I'm glad I did it. um,
We did solar power in California. It did not save us a penny.
oh no, yeah,
No, it didn't work.
oh, okay, it works now. Ours does pretty well. We can go 4 days. We can go 4 days on our own with basic power. We have separate distribution. Like they've gotten really clever with some of it. So you
Mhm.
definitely have to get down to the basics. They call it a critical panel. So we've got the critical power, like keep the fridge on, keep them,
Yeah, we have a generator.
yeah, yeah, that's the way to do it. Do you get much sun? Um, yeah,
Yeah.
it definitely is a factor. A fellow that used to work for me went to work for a company, and their sole reason for their software is to measure the like to provide guidance for solar manufacturers for roofs by using aerial footage and stuff and figure out exactly where things go because you really have to be clever with where you put it. So yeah, it's pretty
So what do
crazy.
you want the focus to be today?
Could be a bunch of things. One of the things I was playing pickleball and I got thinking about type. Um, I'm gonna have a conversation in the next week or two with Topher and with Graham. So I don't know if you probably, well, you'll know this, but like when a whole bunch of body graphs were collected with the data for them in Santa Fe, we got all the statistics and got it down to like there was one manifester, three generators, and one projector, as far as all four worlds. So we're gonna have a conversation, I think, in the next week and just talk about what that looks and feels like. Because the data there is fascinating to me.
Well, 99% of the population are manifesting generators.
Right.
Bottom line.
So I want to understand the nuances by talking to the 1% to get some good data. So that's my plan. But I got thinking about type this morning. Where did I go with that? It was Ra said something once, and I'm assuming he manufactured it in his mind. But it was something that has been a bit of a, I don't know if I call it a litmus test, but I can sort of tell a manifester by how he described their aura. And it was something to the effect of manifestors 400 years ago was an older energy type, and they were the ones that would choose who lived or died, like off with his head. And so it kind of came with this, and I see you smiling, but some of the people I meet that are manifestors, I don't think they're aware that their aura has that outward.
My aura has it,
Uh, no,
but
but
I'm a manifester.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, I think there's an assertiveness or confidence that can come with it if the manifestor is comfortable within themselves. So it can also come
But
across
that
as
would be the case for anyone comfortable within themselves.
true, which is why I want to have the conversation because
Mhm.
it's like, is that a manifestor thing? And
Well,
and
obviously, if it's not, if I'm not manifesting it,
yeah,
and I kept saying to Ra, what you're describing as a manifester is not me at all.
mhm. Yeah. Well, and Topher doesn't give off that vibe whatsoever. And he's
Mhm.
the manifester of manifestors, right? If you use that as your measuring stick. So that's what was going on through my head was all that. But then it occurred to me like if Ra serves as an example to other manifestors and describes things in these ways, they may behave that way. And I've noticed some of that behavior too. Manifestors that don't, they're giving off that vibe, but they're shocked to discover that it's not working for them. And I can see the pain in their eyes. Like I can see these people in my mind. So yeah. So it's obviously just something else. Maybe like the other thought, design is kind of our nature, right? And then what happens around and for us is nurture. No, you wouldn't break it down that basically?
No, design is a artificial imposing on us a structure to try to explain personality.
Mhm.
And it is not real.
Mhm.
None of it's real.
Mhm.
It's conceptions to help us master our consciousness, but none of it describes consciousness because consciousness cannot be described in words.
I like that. Yeah. Yeah, at the end of the day, design that I know of it and hearing you describe how, raw, whatever, channeled it, whatever, how the information came. And then it was a group of people worked together to try to illustrate it for the rest of us. And ultimately, it has all of their stuff with it.
The people who were involved initially in design were very rigid. And early in design, especially with Zeno and Chaitanya, who were New Sunwear America, mind you,
What?
and everything went through them.
Oh, okay.
So when Ra was teaching in Europe, there were no materials. There was the black book, and that was it. And that was everything the voice basically told him in that black book. And then when Zeno and Chaitanya got involved and they set up New Sunwear America, everything that was going to be published was going to come through them. And they ran a very tight ship with what they released. And when Ra was teaching, when I studied with him, everything was formulaic. And in order to become an analyst, you needed to use the formula. And the formula had no understanding of psychology, the integrated matrices, the sleep architecture or the personality architecture, if you will. There was no sophistication. None of the players, Zeno, Chaitanya, Ra, maybe Chaitan, early involvement, Marianne Winokur, none of them were educated. None of them had any background in the psyche or consciousness other than having gone through experiences with Osho. And having been at the ashram in Pune and having had experiences there that were less than ethical on the part of the leaders of the organization, by the time Osho came to America, Marvin and I had already burned everything because of the level of dysfunction going on around Osho. When I took sannyas in 1978, August 4th, 1978, Osho was a clear channel.
What is Sonya's? Sorry?
It's I became a disciple.
Oh, I see. Okay, so like a follower.
And in fact, today I'm wearing orange, the color of discipleship. And my name as a disciple of Osho's was Asangato. Mahadeva Asangato, meaning divine inconsistency. And when I left, things began around the time I left that I knew things were not right. And then within 6 months, Marvin and I burned everything because it was bad.
But what did you see that wasn't right? Like, again, was it a sense, or you saw, and was it coming from the top, or was it just individuals in it that
No,
were?
it was, at one point I wrote to Osho with a question.
Hmm.
And the answer I got back was so off base that his credibility was no longer there.
And did he, like, if it was a written, did he respond, or did someone respond on his behalf? It seemed like he had
If
a lot.
someone responded on his behalf and responded as that answer was, it was unconscionable.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, I'm not.
I
I'm
mean,
just.
I run an organization. Nothing goes out from my organization that I haven't looked at. And even in terms of answering emails now, I have said, if somebody asks a question, I want to be the one to answer it.
Mhm.
You can't delegate to people who are not capable and expect your organization to be conscious.
Yeah.
So by the time Osho got to Oregon, the people with him were not good people. They were evil.
Mm.
And I can say to some degree that Ra took those people completely in. They went from when Osho died and Oregon was disbanded, Ra got those people. And they weren't good people. Um, so when I met Ra, and I was in the first class I went to, I dressed as a professional. I expected a professional class. It was anything but. And we were asked to pass an exam that was purely memorization and formulas.
Oh, really? Okay. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. If you have the 1762, you're an organizational being. If you have the, um, you
Oh,
know,
you're talking about Ra again, not Osho.
Ra,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. I was sorry. My mind was.
No,
Yes.
Ra took all of the Osho people
Right.
and began teaching formulas
Mm.
because they didn't have the capacity to look at the body graph or at the dream design or at what was in it and know if it was real or not. I remember sitting with Ra, and at one point he said, when the voice told him that when your body runs out of serotonin, you die. And Marvin said, Ra, that doesn't happen, you know.
Serotonin, right? So yeah, so you're not going to run out so long as
I
everything's
mean,
lubricated and oiled. That's how it works, right?
so that was the level of the medical stuff that Ra was given.
Mm.
And when I tested it scientifically, none of it held.
Mm.
So anyone who takes what he said about health or medical is getting misinformation. And I can say that 100% because I did the statistics.
Yeah. At some point I have to, or maybe like I don't know anything about how statistics are tabulated. So I don't know like what does that involve? Um,
It involved taking every single variable in the body graph, every gate,
every gate, okay?
every line, every defined circuit, and coding them in to a statistical program and saying, do these things relate to each other? So, for example, if we look at a circuit, let's say the tribal circuit, do those channels in the tribal circuit have more in common with each other than they do with the abstract circuit? They don't. No commonality. No, nothing that you could say this has more relatedness to this than it does to this other thing.
Well, that helps because it's so funny how my brain works lately, but you said it to relate to the abstract circuit. And then I'm trying to remember what the abstract circuit is and looks like. And I realize I don't care. Like it's you did a very good job of telling us like capturing a theme or how someone behaves and tying it to something. And it could be so simple. Like there's 1,000 ways that it could be, but it can be captivating. It can suck you in.
And Ra was a great storyteller
Mhm.
and he made up good stories
Mhm.
and they were logical. So listening to him, he was very credible.
Mhm.
But when tested, his stories didn't have validity. So certain things do hold. The structure of the body graph held. The 5 types held.
Mhm.
So when I said, is there in the body graph, can we differentiate the characteristics of a manifester from a manifesting generator, from a generator, from a projector, yes, you could.
Mhm.
And you could at beyond the 99th level of certainty that it was real.
Mhm.
So, I coded absolutely everything that we could think of to code. So, it's simple. You're an IT person. You code, what does coding mean? You take it and you break it down to a binary, basically.
Yeah.
And then you put it in the statistical package and you run different kinds of analyses. I ran factor analyses, correlations, z-tests, t-tests, chi-squares, multi-factor analysis of variance,
You're gonna
which,
talk about all those mean at some point, but I believe you.
well, some people will know what I'm talking
Yeah,
about.
oh, for sure. Yeah, yeah.
And so if you take, let's say, 100 data points
Mhm.
and you throw them at a graph, and then you look to see what is the point that they all cluster around? Sometimes they cluster and sometimes they don't.
Mhm.
And if things are too far out, you're not going to get noise. You're not going to get any parameters that you can say are real. And so I did that with 30,000 matched sample cases.
Hmm.
I will publish the statistics again, probably as an ebook.
Yeah, that'd be interesting to look at, and how you did it. That's, I think, I always want to know the why. So that's valuable. Thank you. Um, oh, we've actually got a couple of comments this morning. Alina Li, have a nice day. Oh, actually, I'll put it on the screen here. What is the meaning of the hanged man in Tree of Life in your experiences? The path of intelligence between Hod and Gavura.
I'm not talking about that yet.
Oh, okay.
Um, I will talk about that in the very near future. But the hanged man is illustrating what happens as we move up into really understanding the true nature of man and life. And part of what we need to do is eliminate all of our preconceived notions of who we are and what we are, because none of what we've been told is the truth. And so our consciousness exists beyond this existence. And our reason for being here transcends our personality. And so the true purpose of life is love and compassion and being the manifestation of that. But to be the manifestation of that, you cannot be attached. And so it presents us with an interesting dilemma. And how do we throw out false beliefs and embrace the truth and still live in the manifesting mental waking world? There is the trick.
Mhm.
Most people fail and they live in fear of death and of running out of resources. And when you live with the oneself, those fears disappear.
The fear of death is an interesting one. That came up yesterday for me. Like I
Mhm.
was actually just sitting with it for about 10 minutes. It was just so uncomfortable. And part of me was like wanting to get over it. I think I eventually just kind of changed the channel in my mind, but I just kind of sat with that darkness for a bit, and it felt awful.
What, what about it was awful?
Good question, because I don't because I'm really enjoying my life right now, and I'm excited about experiences, and I'm in no hurry to leave, and so I feel not always able to direct things where I want yet. That's not the right words, but I don't always feel safe. Um, hmm. Yeah, I have to sit
That's
with
not
it
the
and
right
wonder.
word.
Yeah, what's the right word?
I don't know what the right word is for you, but
Okay.
it's not safe.
Yeah. Yeah. No.
I think, Sean, if I'm hearing correctly, that where you're getting caught is between your consciousness and your personality. And the inability for consciousness to be the person.
What do you mean by that? Consciousness to be the person.
When your consciousness is more important than who you are perceived as, then the personality becomes less important.
Okay. What am I aiming for? More consciousness or more personality?
Um, the personality is irrelevant.
Right.
And your consciousness will outlive your personality.
Hmm. That's for sure.
So when Napoleon Hill talks about the one self, and I should go find that quote from him, it's in his unpublished documents. And what he said is that he was told by his mentors that until he was living and communicating with the one self, he would not be successful. And there was a point at which he heard the voice of the one self, and it gave him a directive that made no sense whatsoever.
Hmm.
And because it was the voice that told him to do it, he did it. And it turned his life around.
Hmm.
And he then knew that he needed to listen for that level of inner sense of self that came from somewhere beyond him
Hmm.
and not from the mental waking world that he thought was real. Every major decision in my life came from that voice,
Hmm.
every major one, including moving from the Palisades. I mean, so many friends have texted us and said, you moved just in time. You got out just in time.
Hmm.
I was saying for a couple of years, we have to get out of LA.
Hmm.
And, mind you, that's still my home.
Hmm. Yeah, it's interesting how things shift, right? Um, Geography, energy, money. We had two condos in Florida. We sold the last one a year and a half ago, and it was awesome. We bought the first one because we were going to Florida a lot. Like the weather was a great, and the kids loved it. And Disney World was always kind of like something that I always dug the Disney thing. Um, yeah, and then we got really good at it. Like we had this condo where people were staying all the time, and I was doing the opposite of what everyone else was doing. Everybody else was steering their condo towards the snowbirds that would come and, they get that big rental of the year. So, some senior folks, often from Canada, staying for 2, 3 months, almost used to pay for the condo for the rest of the year. But that's not what happens anymore because of just the way things work. But I just kept aiming for families and trying to make an experience where like the kid wanted to be there. So we had this cool little Star Wars room that we did up, and it was an awesome project. Like Wendy and I really enjoyed building something awesome. And then we replicated it because it was like, wow, this is easy now. The administrative part we had dialed in. And then life got challenging, and And we just realized that we were worrying about everyone else having a good time with these condos, and we weren't doing that at all. And it was a long travel day, like going from Victoria to Florida, that's like a 14 to 18 hour day
Yeah.
because changing flights, like it just wasn't worth it. So yeah, we got out of it too. And you know, it didn't feel awesome, but I'm so relieved. Like the energy we were putting into making sure other people had a good vacation. And we were still just scraping by with these apparent assets that were in wooden buildings in Florida where hurricanes are coming. Uh,
Right.
this is some bullshit, by the way. This is, I think, actually, I remember what the turning point for me was that we had to get hurricane insurance. We had to because it's a condo and it's in Florida and the buildings,
Right.
right? So not great decisions for the region, anyways. But if the hurricane is a named hurricane, you're not covered for insurance. Well, hurricane is always named,
Right.
right? That's the difference between a tropical storm and a hurricane. Once it gets a name, like Fabian or whatever, that's a
Right.
hurricane. So no, if you read the fine print, at least whoever the insurance was at the time, you weren't covered for that. And that was the only reason we needed insurance, other than like someone, we were on the bottom floor. Like if someone did something with the kitchen up above and it was a water leak. That was truly what we needed insurance for, was people doing dumb things. So yeah, it's just so frustrating. Like it's just such a ridiculous requirement. We have to give someone else money to protect something that they're not going to protect. The illusion, like it's done. So, and it's happening everywhere. So burn it down. Cool. So we answered Elena's question, and Raven's here. Hello, Sean and Dr. Eleanor. I have a question for you. Does the physical world charts represent our physical appearance?
No, no, it can't.
That makes sense to me. Catherine DeJersey's book, I noticed, and I'm only like a third of the way through
Which one?
the Destiny one. I think that was the one you suggested I read first.
Destiny times 6?
Yeah. She was just describing people's characteristics based on their astrology. Like this such and such was an Aquarius. She could tell by their nose and stuff. And it was like, I was reading this thing and I'd never made any kind of correlation like that before. And I was
Yes,
trying to figure out,
there are some characteristics you can tell.
okay. Do you want to share some? Like what I'm an Aquarius. So is there certain Aquarian things about and if it's my mushroom nose, you're not going to offend me. That's the family trait. We're very proud of our cute little noses, cute big noses.
Um, I'm not an expert with identifying all of the characteristics, um, but some of them are very obvious. Like if somebody's a Leo, they might have a big mane of hair.
Mm,
Or, with Capricorn, they sometimes have like a pointy chin. Or, um, so you can tell certain things based on facial structure or body structure, but it's not infallible.
mhm,
And I wouldn't use it in too big a way. Katie never used it as a way to label someone, but she would use it, for example, when we're trying to rectify a chart, figure out exactly when somebody was born,
mhm,
some of the nuances of how they look or big events in their life will give some clues that we can use to narrow down the possibilities.
mhm.
But you don't use it like a type, for example.
you've seen patterns and things, I suppose.
Yes.
Yeah. The pattern I notice, and it's because we were talking about human design earlier, and then, but just also with some of this, like some people be like, oh, it, an excuse for why they might behave badly. They'll be like, oh, it's because I'm a whatever. Like it's almost like an excuse, right? So it's again,
Yeah.
it can be very handy, and everybody goes, ah, but it's like, or just don't be a dick, just don't do that. Like read the room.
I tend not to do readings where I label people.
Hmm.
I didn't do that as a psychologist, and I don't want to do it as a coach,
Hmm.
especially not as a spiritual coach. Uh, the empowerment that comes from someone knowing who they are and communicating that is far more important than anything I could tell them.
So you mentioned, I don't know if it was while we were talking here or before we got started, but students in class want to start doing some readings, and because there isn't a formula, what would you what would you tell them? Because like I don't particularly want to do readings, but I enjoy looking at the information and having a
The
conversation.
chart for I did a reading this morning. It didn't turn out because the recording didn't take, but so I will redo it. But it was a baby.
Mm.
And in 5 of the 8 charts, she was a reflector. And in the uh, human design chart, she would have been identified as a projector. In the lunar chart, she was a
Mm.
manifesting generator, 3420. Boom. In the postnatal lunar and solar, there was some definition. But for the most part, the baby was very open. And yet, in composite, she became a manifesting generator, very strong. And what I found myself reading was that this child is someone who will be able, she picks up energy, she sees auras, she's clearly a crystal child or an indigo with many abilities,
I don't know.
uh, other dimensions.
Oh, okay.
To be a manifesting generator in the lunar design. Now, the 20 is going to be in the spiritual, but the 34 is not.
Mm.
But it's giving her the capacity to transform emotional energy. She also picked up the 59-6. So you have to read the way things come together in a person. And what I found myself saying in advice to parents is this child knows who she is. And you need to listen to her and make a differentiation between need and value. So, to give the audience listening a lesson in communication, the way to tell if there's a difference between a need and a value is whether or not there's a tangible, concrete effect of you on you of the other person's behavior. If the other person and their behavior affects you directly, and you can name the tangible, concrete effect, then that's a need. If you can't, it's a value. And if it's a value, the other person has no reason to change.
Mm.
If your value and my value are different, why would you change your value to please me
Mm.
if it had no tangible, concrete effect on me? The example I always use is of my kids' preschool, kindergarten, and first grade. saying in the morning, I want to eat ice cream for lunch. And me thinking, okay, what's the tangible, concrete effect on me of them eating ice cream? I couldn't come up with a reason other than I'm your mom and I'm going to worry that you're going to get hungry. Well, they don't care. So because I couldn't come up with a tangible, concrete effect on me of their behavior, I let them eat ice cream for breakfast. They never did it again.
Well, that's what I think is so interesting about that. Because I could think of 1,000 reasons as a parent where I would interject, right? Oh, I wouldn't want someone to see my child eating ice cream at noon because what would people think of me as a parent? Or I'm worried that they did it 3 days in a row, it'll become a habit. But if you just let go of it for the day, and then
It's not your problem
yeah,
unless it has an effect on you.
yeah,
And so the parent effectiveness uh, training by Tom Gordon is a phenomenal book.
mhm,
And it is the way we communicate in the mental waking world. Tom was a master at that. Tom came out of the same department I did at University of Chicago. He trained with Carl Rogers, who came out of the same department. Carl began doing a kind of therapy he called client-centered therapy. And he coined the phrase active listening. But active listening doesn't describe what that kind of listening is. So Tom further amplified it in his book, Parent Effectiveness Training. It later became organizational training. And I personally was the training director for organizational training in Chicago. And we were taking it into banks and corporations and other places to teach people how to communicate effectively in an organization.
mhm.
And parenting is tricky because if you attempt to use will and authority over your children, they're not going to listen to you.
Mhm.
So Tom came up with what he called method 3 problem solving, a way that everybody could get what they needed.
Method 3.
Method 3 problem solving.
And is that because there's 3 elements to it, or
No, it's because it's neither authoritarian nor laissez-faire. So you're not telling the other person what to do. You win, they lose.
Mhm.
You're not letting go of your own needs. They win, you lose. But you're coming up with a solution where everybody gets what they need. And that takes time and energy and creativity and what I would call in the 4 worlds creative intelligence. It's intelligence that takes into account the soul.
Mhm.
It's a term coined by Maharishi Mahesh Yogi as to when you're a meditator and you are I'm looking at somebody across the street. Um, so if you're authoritarian or you're laissez-faire, one person wins and the other person loses. In method 3 problem solving, everybody has a voice to say what they need and what possible solutions they could live with.
Mhm.
And you're brainstorming. So when you're in a meditative conscious state, as you are when you're doing transcendental meditation, the possibilities open up to you. It's like access bars. All possibilities are open to me now.
Yeah. Hmm. That's interesting. I was like, as you were describing that, I was reflecting on a conversation I had yesterday that was like really difficult because we basically had Wendy and I, we had our accountant there, and it was a planned meeting where, the meeting was going to be about we got to do this differently. It's not working, and it really just had to slow everything right down to basic needs. And then because the energy for this company that I started way back when is it's just not for me. And you know, it was like, do we just close it? Do we bankrupt it? We can't actually even bankrupt it because everything in that business is tied to our home. So if we bankrupt the company, they'll just take our home. So like the system just fucked us end to end. So, to wiggle out of this had to just be like, saying to Winnie, like looking her right in the eye and being like, if you want to get some money from this from somebody, but they're going to put us through a process that I've already gone through before, and it was painful and it took a long time and nothing came of it. So, if we're, do we just close it off? Do we? And so all the options were on the table, and not sure where it's going to land, but it was all as raw as it could be, and needed to.
Well, what I'd recommend then is all options are on the table. Brainstorm each option.
Mhm. We were, and because we got really creative, like I was, and of course, some of this creativity happens while I'm playing pickleball, which is maddening. So I'm trying to focus on playing, and I'm making my partner crazy because I'm disappeared into, how do I restructure a company, So, but yeah, it was some of the options were pretty nuts. Like take that old company and move a product that I made into it, and it was just a fun to think about it from every angle. All I know is the energy needs to shift, and so it was good. And I'm excited to see where it's going to go. So not excited. I'm anxious to get on with it, but it's not anxious, worried. It's like
Uh-huh.
I want to move this energy. So
Right.
yeah, it's good. Uh,
I will be doing a 5-day experience next week, by the way.
okay.
And it is the 4 worlds plus the integrated world. I did it a few months ago, and the feedback from it was pretty incredible.
Mhm.
So we start with the spiritual world, then the physical world, emotional world, and mental world, and integrated world. And I'm going to be doing a preview tonight of what it is and answer questions. Um, it shows up on Facebook every day, and there is a question for everyone to answer every day, and there's a prize that I
Yeah.
give out every day. And then if anyone who's done all 5 days and answers the integrated world question is eligible to win a grand prize.
So there's something tonight. Did you send an email to the class?
Yes.
Okay,
Uh-huh.
I have to go check that. I think there's
6 o'clock to 7 o'clock.
okay. I'm finding myself like I've always wanted to spend less and less time on Facebook, but lately it's just a blur of noise, so I can never really tell. But yeah, I want to do that exercise again. So, hmm, what's that on your wrist? Is that you were telling me about something the other day and I started researching it. It was about, I think it pulses to heart math
Oh,
stuff.
you mean this? This
Oh,
is
that's an
my
Apple
Apple
Watch.
Watch.
Okay. All right.
No, but I was talking about two different things. I think there's affiliate links on my website.
Mm,
This is a Apollo Neuro,
that's the one I'm wondering about. Yeah.
and then I sit on a PMF pad,
Hmm. What's it called? An emmet pad?
A PEMF. It's an omnicef. It's neorhythm. I think it's one of the better ones. The Apollo Neuro is a PEMF. It's a frequency that has healing potential. And the Apollo Neuro has smart vibes, so you can program it to do some of its different programs in the course of your day.
What is it doing though? Like, is it pulsing something so that your body,
Yes.
like it senses that your body's not relaxed and it's kind of just,
No, it doesn't sense your body.
you know?
You tell it what frequency you want it to play and it plays it.
Oh, okay. So instead of listening to music, your body is listening to something that's
Right. You can listen to your music too.
yeah, but it's meant to be felt like and
It's, well, actually not. You can turn it up so you feel it,
hmm,
but they more recommend that you leave it subliminal.
hmm,
So I leave it so I don't even feel it.
hmm.
Um,
But you
and
know it's
I have it
there. So
going, I don't have it going all the time.
hmm, hmm. Yeah,
I began to trust it when I broke my arm. In 2013, I broke my clavicle. The ocean knocked me over. And then after we moved, June of 2021, the dogs pulled me over and I broke my arm in three places, my upper arm, and I cracked my head.
hmm,
I needed a couple of stitches.
hmm.
Um, and it was, it's my right arm and I'm right-handed. So it was so bad that I couldn't even bend it. It was just hanging. And I used the Thermatec Ultra infrared heating pad nonstop on my arm. I did Reiki on it nonstop, and I used my Apollo Neuro and my Neorhythm. So I threw the book at it,
Yeah.
and it healed in less than 4 weeks.
Well,
And the orthopedist actually said to Marvin recently, "How's your wife doing? She healed her arm in record time."
yeah. It's interesting. Like I'm always working on like my cocktail to improve things. I twisted my knee playing pickleball like 2 weeks ago, and I was like, this cannot stop me from playing. So I like just threw everything at it. Like I started with like a CBD topical, and then I went to Tiger Balm because it was just stronger and I could smell it, but it also created this vibrating feeling around my leg that made it feel like energy was moving. And then because I could feel and sense it, I wanted to move it. I wanted to stretch it. And I got really curious about stretching my legs and it really I doubled down on my qigong stuff and like driving that energy there and my stretching. So I basically healed it. Like I don't know, I didn't wear a brace today. Um, and I think I probably would have been wearing it either always if I let it get tight, you know. I know I'm doing a lot of other things that helps. Like I've got a an earthing or grounding pillowcase cover, so that I'm always getting somewhat grounded at least, because I know inflammation is a big part of that. So I don't feel like I feel like my body's like really, really healthy at the moment. And it's
Good.
about energy and moving. Yeah, it's just all energy, really.
It is all energy.
Yeah,
We are light beings,
yeah,
energetic bodies. We think we're solid, but we're not.
yeah. that phrase, I think it was Nikola Tesla said, like, where attention goes, energy flows. And that has been like in my mind all week. So I realized even with the leg, the attention I was giving it was loving attention. It was the intention was to like, I want to keep playing pickleball. This is not going to slow me down. So I was kind, I was gentle, I was doing Reiki, I was doing everything at it, but my intention was a loving intention towards that knee. And so it healed in record time. And so
Mhm.
then I started applying it to the last couple of days. I'm like, I'm not doing enough with music. I need to like put my attention there, even if it's just like, let's think about. I got asked to potentially play a gig with a fella in a couple of weeks, and it was the nicest way I've ever been asked. Like it was just like he wanted me to play with him, and I want to show up for that gig full or like complete. So I was like, well, it's gonna be a rhythm and blues gig, and I have two snare drums. One is it's called a 3-inch piccolo, and if I hit it, it's gonna blow the room off the place. It's not gonna be suitable for this person's gig. And then the other drum is this deep steel one. Again, it's really loud and piercing, and I realized that like drummers talk about all the time, but it's always about cutting through because the volume is always so loud. So it's like, what drum cuts through so that I can be heard? Because everybody's just trying to be heard and they're all just amplifying everything. And I realized that what I missed was I didn't have a wooden snare drum. You know, you're using wooden sticks and you're hitting, the rim is always going to be metal. The head these days is always plastic. But there was no vibrational uh, relationship with that drum. So it was like, so then I was using Chat GPT and it like I need a drum that sounds full, is complementary to this style of music, still gonna make a statement. You know, what wood should, and I was like, oh, you need an oak snare drum and 5.5, 6 inches. So I was like, well, okay. So I went to the store and took my old two drums with the intention to trade them in for this other drum. And I just had, it was so much fun picking a new snare drum and with like a plan for picking it. So just, so I just loved it. So anyways, I got this little, it's called a Black Panther snare drum and I'm gonna add it to my arsenal. So
Good.
so that but I can feel like where I'm putting that attention, I get excited about it and I'm like, oh, why am I, that's what I need to do. Just enjoy that process. So
Good.
yeah. Anyways, sorry, ramble. Um, hmm. What do you have planned for this weekend?
Um, Probably writing.
Hmm.
I have to write, I want to finish writing the 24th Path of Intelligence. I want to record some of the Cosmic Guidance
Hmm.
book. I want to review my 5-day experience because that's coming up. And I have a couple of readings to do for people. I need to redo the one I did earlier today. I might try to squeeze that one in between the podcast and the preview class tonight, but I may not have time. So I may have to do that tomorrow. Um, and I want to take some time and just be.
Nice. I had a really cool conversation with a fellow yesterday. He's a Reiki fella, and it was so interesting. He's made so many Reiki videos for different energies, and he was so excited because he could feel it. Like we just had such a straight, it was such a real conversation about just feeling the energy and kind of embodying it. And he was excited because he's produced so much of it that he is close to having enough hours of energy that he's putting out there that people are receiving, that it like how many hours he's been alive. He's like, like it was just such a neat way. He described it much better, but it was just very cool, very loving, very high intention, conscious. And I was thinking about when you're doing that, because I do it in the morning still too, the cosmic guidance, like just read it and I kind of take it and embody it. And honestly, on most days I forget, and so then I'm kind of like rushed, and I'm like, "Ugh, I'm not really doing this the way I intend." But I think my comment, my question, do you do you think about emitting or transmitting Reiki when you're sharing those videos so that they can be others can absorb that energy in the future? Or do you believe that you're always emitting it, or do you have to do the symbols and intention before you do the video? But it was just an interesting way. Like those are timeless videos in a way, right?
Yes. I think the energy is there in the words.
Hmm.
And I do treatments with Reiki every day.
Hmm.
So
So it's always kind of
please
flowing, right?
using the symbols and working with it.
Yeah, I've been thinking about that a lot lately. Like, am I just always emitting that energy? I mean, I can tell when it's more or less because I can feel it, like it becomes a sensation. And so there's times where it's just like not there because I'm tired or whatever. Um, yeah, when I can turn it on, it's potent. So
Well, the symbols will turn it on for you.
yeah,
And if you just use the one main symbol that sets it in motion, you can do that anywhere, anytime.
right. So that's the Choku Ray, and that's so the other two are, just to be clear, are for in absentee or like effectively remote, like the
Right.
intention to share this Reiki with someone else. So why do you need to activate it, I guess? Is it just because that's always been the intention and the discipline, or does it actually doing something?
It does it. It does it very specifically. You're um, setting the intention to send it very specifically to someone,
Hmm.
and you're telling them how it's going to impact them, and you're directing the energy directly toward them, and they get it.
Mhm.
And I've done enough second degree Reiki, third degree Reiki treatments to know that when I set a time with somebody for them to receive something and I tune them in, there's no question they feel a different energy.
Mhm. See, every day I do some Reiki on myself, and I set an intention for my wife, my kids, my parents, you and Marvin. Like I've got this ever growing circles, right? And then eventually to everybody. Oh, there was a question there. But that's part of my practice. But so I'm sending this energy to people, and I'm hoping that it's for their greater good in whatever way they want to absorb it. But it does seem to be that you need to almost tell them that you've sent it to them because they need to be willing to receive it, right? Like, isn't there almost like
Well,
a
you wouldn't be
of,
sending it to people who haven't given you permission to send them energy.
yeah. And will they receive it only if they intend to receive it, or it
No, they'll
actually
receive it regardless.
regardless? Okay, well, that's good to know. So I'm not wasting my time.
No, you're not wasting your time.
Okay, good. Oh, Stephanie Clifton just chimed in. She lost her sister yesterday. I did see that. Open to Reiki or any care you might feel to send. So how would you send energy to someone that just lost uh, a sister? Like what is it? Is it
Does she
anti-grief?
want you to send energy to her or to her and her uh, sister who passed?
Uh,
Why don't you ask her?
she didn't clarify, but I did. Where she's probably trying listening in right now. I will tell you that when I've been sending Reiki to my pets, like we had to say goodbye to one of our cats 2 weeks ago, and I still find myself sending there, like where her soul is or whatever. Hmm. Yeah. Hmm. I don't think she's answering right now. That was a nice little quiet silence. That was nice. Hmm. So next week for class, we're reading charts, and then the 24th path, you'll share a draft of that like by the end of next week, I guess. But as we were talking about earlier, I think it's been really valuable to know I can read ahead.
Yes.
Concept of what you're talking about when you're talking about it. So, okay, that's good. Oh, and Stephanie just answered. So I think your question was the Reiki for her or for her sister or both? She says either or, just open. My sis is in a new journey and I'm sure she would receive. So,
Yep. So to both of them.
okay, awesome. Stephanie, I'll send you some later.
She what?
I'm saying to Stephanie, I'll send her some later.
Uh-huh.
Make sure to include her. I have to focus still. I did I put the symbols on a whiteboard over here at Funky Town in the middle. And part of me was wondering, like, because I know they're sort of sacred symbols, but I knew that it would raise curiosity. And so what I did is there's a grounding mat because I want to encourage people to come in and at least take your shoes off and just get grounded. They're about to do some yoga or things like feel connected. So I very strategically put this mat below where all the latest posters of what's coming up. So if you want to go look at them, you can stand on it. And then I drew the symbols in the middle on the whiteboard. And so what I've realized I've been doing, and I think it's helping, is I go stand on it, I get grounded, and I trace it with my eyes. And that's when I really feel it. Like it's like there's a difference between imagining it and then just like tracing it.
Right.
It really, I can feel it switch on. And then I feel good because I feel like I've left some of it there. So the next person that stands there could absorb what I'm putting out.
Right.
That's kind of what my brain is trying to do. Yeah. Hmm.
So you could get a group together and do a group treatment, and you could charge for it.
Or
Or you could put together a first degree class.
mhm.
We could do it on Zoom.
And like you can show people, like I mean, a big part of it is holding space, really, right? It's being quiet and holding space. And like I can imagine doing a circle and everybody just, doing head treatments. You know what I mean? And does everyone need to be activated in Reiki, or could you have a circle of 10?
Yes. No, you can't do it without the symbols.
Right.
You have to be attuned, or the Reiki isn't the same.
Okay, so I gotta understand how that works. So, because you've done it with me, and for sure the energy's moving. So whatever you did, magic. Um, what is it doing? Like I can't get it. Like how do
The
those?
symbols are imprinted into the aura, and the fourth attunement on the first degree symbol seals it in to the aura. That's why there are four. With second degree, there are two. The first one does not seal it in. The second one seals it in.
The second attunement, right?
And I can tell you that when I do my symbols, the energy turns on. So, however it happened, that Dr. Usui got the symbols and they were real. It's like Moses getting the Ten Commandments.
Mhm.
When God gives you something, you take it and you say thank you and you honor the tradition.
Yeah, totally. I remember it was probably because I think were encouraging me to pursue it, and my friend Timothy Bacon, who's really big into it as well, and I had some really cool experiences with him. But both of you talked about, felt like a big responsibility, and initially I was like, I could feel myself being like, I don't think I'm ready for this. Like, But in my mind, I made it out to be much bigger than it was. Like it was somehow like I was going to need to be on the top of a hill and, wear a poncho and, I was going to have to, like it just my mind went into all these places. And really, all it is an attitude and a certain carving a portion of my day that ends up feeling great for me and gets me centered and balanced. And then my intention just is that I hope others benefit from it too. Like there's no negative there whatsoever, other than remembering that you got to carve time out for it. There's an intention. So I guess all that to say, like the output of it is starting to really,
Pay off.
for sure, and seems to be just growing, right? So
Mhm.
I remember Marvin said something. I think it was in the first or the second activation when we were doing the Reiki. He said something to me like, "Be careful, don't blast off too fast or something," because I have a tendency to just throw everything at stuff, and so some of my experiences have been like that. It was almost like he could tell that I was gonna go with this, and so yeah, I have to kind of manage just how much energy it is. I can. It always feels good, and I think part of the reason it feels good is it feels different. But for a long time, feeling different didn't feel good. So it's really trying to get comfortable with that, and it's been very, very, very great data. So, whew, okay.
Any other questions?
Nope. Got a big thank you from Stephanie, and that's it. And a bot. There's clearly a bot in here. So
Oh,
yeah.
and what's the bot doing?
Uh, it says shut your yip yap. And then it says and. So it's either a soul that is sitting there and is bored out of their mind, and should find something else to do, or it's a bot that's hoping to get us to respond and play the game, and I'm not. So, but I thought it was interesting. That's the first time we've had a bot in there. Okay, I need to go. I can feel the energy in me, like it's too much right now. So I need to go actually like meditate for half an hour, I think. It's a lot.
Okay, we can stop.
Okay. Well, why don't we stop the broadcast there? Hang out here for a second. I'll hit the button to make it look all